Hey everyone, welcome back to the live stream this weekend. Hope everybody had a great weekend. This is Sunday, and we are going to put in some wiring into the van floor. We've been starting a series of the floor installation, and we have put in our strips that take care of all the corrugations in the floor, level everything out. We've pre-cut our insulation, which you guys can see behind me. And then what we're going to do is going to talk about a couple of the components here. And our agenda for today is, where's my drawing pad? There we go. We're going to talk about electrical layout in the floor. We're going to talk about electrical wiring and components, so fuse sizing as well. And then we're going to talk about, we'll actually insulate the floor. We'll glue it in. We'll glue in the parts of the floor that we need to glue in and keep making progress on this van build. So the first thing at the top, the electrical layout in the floor, that is, we're going to be talking about marine grade wiring. And if you guys hear a beep in a second, this is hilarious, but I'm making some coffee right now, so I'm going to pause and get that coffee really quick. So you guys can look at the stuff in the van really quick. I'm going to grab some coffee, and I'll be right back. As I'm walking over to get the coffee, the challenge today is going from the traditional camper van building with 12-volt electrical, putting in the engine alternator to the battery, to the DC to DC charger, that sort of thing. And in this build in particularly, we are going to be going over to Ecoflow, which I'm really excited about because it's exciting as a builder, but then it's also exciting as a customer because it's extremely simple. I don't want to say simple. Well, it's simple because it comes, this is a very good DIY kit. So let's talk about going from traditional to Ecoflow. How are we looking on camera? All right. So you guys might not know anything about Ecoflow, which is okay. That's why we're going to get on the computer. I'm going to talk about Ecoflow for a second. All right, so we're going to go to the computer. We're going to type in Ecoflow Power Kit. And we've got a bunch of stuff here. There we go. Give me 1 second, my screen's all messed up. Okay, perfect. All right, so we got Ecoflow. We're going to go to Power Kits. It's easier to type in Ecoflow Power Kit. If you go to just regular Ecoflow's website, it's not the easiest to navigate. So we go to Power Kits, and we have purchased for this customer the 5 kilowatt hour power kit. And there's different ones you can upgrade to, 5, 10, 15. The price goes up from there. But let's talk about, and that's wild, these are all sold out. Interesting. So let's talk about this really brief. The Ecoflow is an all-in-one system. So you're going to have your DC to DC charger, your MPPT solar charge controller, your shore power, and your pure sine wave inverter all into one unit. So that unit is going to be broken down into 3 different systems. You have your system that I just talked about. So all those components are actually in this one box. Then you're going to have your, let's see, what's the technical term for this? So the power hub, that's your first thing you're going to have. The second one, these are the user manuals. Oh my gosh, that's so small. There we go. So your power hub, and then this is your AC/DC smart distribution panel, which this distribution panel is one of the core things that we're going to talk about in this video. Even though this is a flooring video, you'll see why all this stuff matters here in just a second. I'm trying to get a better photo for you. Let's look up. Okay, see if you guys can see that photo. So if you've ever worked in an RV or had an RV, there's a distribution panel that it's where your shore power, where you hook up at the campsite or whatever, that's where your power is coming into your RV. And I'm just using RV for an example right now. It comes in, goes to this distribution panel. You have breakers such as, household breakers for your 110 volt appliances, and then it's going to break off and it's going to have a 12 volt fused panel for your 12 volt items. So what Ecoflow has done is they've created one for their system, and what they've done to provide power for this is they have designed these two systems here. The power hub and the battery is a 48 volt system. So this is not a 12 volt system, this is a 48 volt system. The benefits of a 48 volt system are when you increase voltage, you decrease current, and you can go with a smaller size wiring for your wiring harness. And if anybody knows about the new Tesla Cybertruck, just to nerd out for a second, they've converted their the Cybertruck into a 48 volt wiring harness, which cuts down cost because the wires are smaller in diameter, but it's also it's much more efficient than a 12 volt system. So the form factor can be smaller. Now, how does this translate into the 100 amp hour batteries, or what does that look like? So this 5 kilowatt hour system is right around, I think it's like 406 amp hours. So you can think of it as having 4 car-sized batteries or 4 of the lithium batteries that everyone's buying for their camper van or RV. So in this one power pack, you've got essentially the density of 4 of those batteries. So besides purchasing this kit because it's cool, it's new, it's very efficient, what I wanted to do was double down on the efficiency of this van so that we could have a more simple setup, and plan was in the future have quicker installs for power systems and the vans I build. So this is going to do a couple things. It allows us to, since it is 48 volts, run a 48 volt rooftop air conditioner, which is much smaller, much more efficient. But with this part here that we're going to talk about today, the smart distribution panel, it allows us to still hook up all of our 12 volt components just like we would in a normal van. So I'm going to back up here and let's look at the smart distribution panel. And then if you guys have any questions, put them in the chat. You can ask me anything van related, just put it in there. Anything on power, the flooring. We will get to flooring. I just want to cover this because what I'm doing right now is I'm planning. Let me switch to the other microphone. So I'm planning the wires that are going to go in the cutout that I just made in the floor. So yesterday we went through, leveled the floor out with our vinyl strips. Today I've just placed these insulation panels in here, and I've cut out this piece of insulation, and I've kept it because when we go to glue the floor in, this is going to go in here and act as a spacer until the floor dries tonight. But for right now, I wanted to invite you guys to the live stream so you can see how I think about running the wires, what decisions I'm making, why I'm putting things where I'm putting them. And the nice thing is I record all these videos so I can always go back and see, what I've done and if I want to change it or anything like that. It's about the most high-def way to look at a wiring diagram. It's a whole video of you doing it. So if you want to record yourself doing it, go ahead and do that. Let me grab this tape measure so I can kind of point at stuff in the van. So we are going to run our wires across the floor today. Now, what we run across this floor will have to do with how we're wiring it back to our distribution panel in the back, and that's the next thing we're going to talk about. But in a nutshell, we've got wire coming from the engine battery or alternator coming all the way back to this, and that's going to be our first thing we're going to talk about. So what I wanted to discuss is how we take the old way, not the old way, but the traditional way of wiring 12-volt accessories using marine grade components, as most people do in the RV industry, and how we move that into this. So I have not seen hardly any videos on YouTube that discuss this changeover, because one thing I do about teaching these videos, or just having this live so you guys can see kind of my thought process, is I do a little bit of prep before the video just to make things flow a little bit faster. And as I was doing that, I was thinking about hooking this up to the van as I typically do, which is I have a fuse block, I have a bag of midi fuses or mega fuses. I size them to my wire. So I have, for example, I've got a big spool of 6-gauge wire. And I hook that to it. Typically, the current that I'm running is no more than 60 amps for like a DC-DC charger, that sort of thing. So in my head, I've got all this stuff planned out. It's just, I pop this in, I pop the fuse in, I run the wire, and then I'll, connect everything to my system. Well, I was reading the manual before this live stream, and what was interesting is there are 3 inputs. This is turning into an Ecoflow video, which is fine. You guys will have to just fast forward later to the end of the video. So we're working and thinking at the same time. So I've got the power hub. Get some coffee here. Okay. So this is the power hub. The box that it comes in is pretty heavy, just like the battery. They come in separate boxes. This comes in a box, this comes in a box, and then you're going to have 2 boxes with 4 to 6 cables, depending on what layout you have. And you're going to have this cable, which is the next thing we're going to talk about. This is the cable that connects to your alternator, which is really connecting to your battery of your engine so that it can charge your Ecoflow battery. The next thing I have is just to show you an example of how this system is modular. This is the cable for the air conditioning system. It's not specifically for the air conditioning system, it just happens to be how you would hook it to this system. All right, let's get back to this. This is the fuse block that I usually put under the driver's seat or right outside it. That is the fuse for the line charge, as the alternator charging for a battery power system. 2 batteries, 4 batteries, 6, it doesn't matter. That line comes to the back and plugs into a DC to DC charger to charge the battery bank. So I was just about to run my line, and one thing with Ecoflow, everything's nice, super nice kit, efficient, good. The manual, it's very brief in the manual. So you have your just basic need to know max amp, max current, what these do. That's about it. It's not specifically designed for a van. It's more designed for off-grid living. So, having AC coming into your house, the AC from the grid charges up your batteries, and then when power goes out or you're off-grid, then your power system will run everything in your house. Now, going into a van, it's, that's why we build vans, is we're emulating what we have in a house, and we're trying to put it into a van so it's nice and comfortable. All right. So as I was wiring that back here, I started looking at the manual because there's 3 inputs on the front of this Ecoflow system. We have alternator in 1, PV, which is solar, photovoltaic. Then we have PV2, alternator 2, PV3, alternator 3. Now each one of these is different. So even though they say alternator 1, PV1, PV1, PV2, alternator 2, 1, 2, 3, PV, 1, 2, 3. They're different. So the first one is where we're going to plug in our alternator cable. And so this cable is coming from the battery, like I just said. We're going to hook this up to our battery. We're going to fuse this, and then we're going to take this end and we're going to plug it in right here. Okay. But we don't want to plug it in alternator 2 or alternator 3, because the first one that I found out is a 60 amp DC to DC charger. So that's where it's getting its 60 amp rating from. That's in the manuals. That's what they advertise. The second and third, these two are 30 amp alternator charging. So tomorrow is Monday. I'm going to call them up because I'm very curious. If we have 60 amps alternator charging here, and then let's just say we're only using 1 bank of solar panels, I want to know if we can pick up an additional 30 amps by running a second one of these cords from the battery. Typically Fords and some other batteries, you have a range of how many amps that you can charge from. Anything around 100 amps from the alternator, if you have like a heavy-duty alternator. So you're pretty safe pulling that much juice out of that. So my question to them tomorrow is going to be, can I buy an additional cable and then take 60 and 30? Because my assumption is these are just individually, essentially the circuitry in here is a 60 amp DC to DC, a 30 amp DC to DC, and a 30 amp DC to DC. So technically 3 mini DC to DCs in here. And then the circuitry for the solar is independent as well. And then whatever switching circuit it has in here is just listening, or it's looking out to see what voltage you're putting in there. So for example, if it's seeing, 12 to 15 volts for the DC to DC charging, and so the voltage is low, as opposed to if you have solar and you're directly wiring it and you have a higher voltage. By seeing a higher voltage, it switches to the PV circuitry, or if you have the lower voltage, it automatically switches to and assumes you have an alternator input. That's just a way of saying, can I just buy 2 of these, hook one here, and then have 90 amps of DC to DC charging, which I would like to have for this system. When you have a lower battery bank and you have a higher charging current, obviously you're going to keep topping the battery off sooner, which your utilization is going to go up. I'm not saying you can emulate a bigger battery bank, but you're charging more than you're using, so you're always kind of keeping it topped off, as opposed to spending a lot of money on a bunch of batteries, charging one big full charge, and then taking a very long time to recharge the whole entire system. Those are my thoughts. So the reason this has to do with flooring is I run this cable on the driver's side along the edge of the flooring. So I take my insulation that's 1 inch and actually cut enough room to run this cable. So that's how this whole video got involved. Tonight I was just going to install the floor and kind of move on with some other things, but I got to thinking, okay, if I'm going to do that and run that back here, what does that setup look like? And then that got me down the wormhole of, do I want to purchase a second wire? Talk to John and Susan about doing a second wire if possible. It's just going to top this system off quicker. The system we have, 580 watts of solar on the roof and 60 amps of charging with their setup is completely fine. I'm just excited to see if this system has that potential going forward. Now, if you were just using one wire, which I'm going to go ahead and just install right now, it's not the end of the world. If we want to add another one later, we can run it from the back here. But if you're just doing one alternator input on this first channel, I guess I'll call it, then these second two, each one of these, now this is where more of a off-grid home solution is. That's the numbers I'm reading in the manual. So you have 1,600 watts each of solar input. It's going to be really hard to get 1,600 watts on the roof of a van. So that's why I'm saying it'd be nice if we've got that's why it'd be nice if we've got I lost my train of thought. If we have alternator 1 at 60 amps, alternator 2 at 30, and then use the third one as our normal solar input. The roof rack we're using is the Explorers.life and Inaka collaboration with the Rich solar panels. So Nate from Explorers.life, if you guys know the YouTuber, he is actually wiring all of those panels together. He's got them in 2 separate banks, and those 2 banks are then joined and fused and then come in the van as just one system into one connection. Now that's good because this kit does not come with additional wires for another bank of solar. It's only going to give you one alternator charging. It's only going to give you one solar input. So those are just my thoughts on this. I'll briefly show you the manual here where it says that. So if we go here and then we just come on down, this is what we're looking at. So we've got the alternator input on channel 1. See, this is confusing too. See how they label 2 and 3 first and then 1 second? So you just got to really pay attention to where this is coming from. Because if you look at this one, you can just say, oh, they're both 30 amps. But that's not true. Alternator input 1 is 60, then 2 and 3 are 30 each. So yeah, so that just kind of, just for your information for you guys. All right. Then up here, while we're just looking at it, 30 amp, that's your shore power input is what that's talking about. For our case, if you had a house and then you off-grid home and you were doing something, that would be what that is. Anyway, I digress, and we are going to get back to this. Okay. So these that has to do with the floor because that's going in the floor. This is a battery cable, and it's a 48-volt battery cable. So we will connect battery 1. So the big old battery that's on the floor will be on battery 1. And then I will verify all this. But battery 2, this is going to the second battery. However, if you think of the circuitry in here, now I need to verify this, but as far as my understanding is we got a 48-volt input connection to the battery. It's a direct 48 connection. This is, these are together. So you can think of this as almost like a bus bar. Now, this is my words. This is not Ecoflow, so don't quote me on this. But this is like a bus bar, and by connecting this, and we have these raw ends, this is going to provide our 48 volts to our pneumatic X2 48-volt rooftop AC. So we'll have a battery bank here, the pneumatic cooling X2 here, and then what's just, I mean, this is such a cool system because this third one is battery 3 or smart generator. So if you are camping and say it's been raining for a couple days, you're not able to drive and top off your battery, Ecoflow makes a generator with a specific port that plugs from the generator to here, and you can top it off via their generator. And then over here is our AC in. So that, I believe, is where we're going to use, we're going to connect our shore power cable to. So that'll be our input from our 30 amp. And then conveniently, our customer, John and Susan, they wanted an outlet in the back of the van. So this is just a 20 amp outlet. It's going to go right there on the mount on the wall. So you have an outlet in your garage area. All right, let me put this down over here, and we're going to move over to the distribution panel, smart distribution panel. That's what this is called. I'm trying to use foam as much as possible. I don't want to scratch. I don't like scratching all the new stuff up. So this, we've got some cooling fans up here, as you guys can see, intake on the bottom. And it's not the lightest thing, but it's all in one unit. All right, let me move this stuff around here. Okay, that's our brief overview of the power hub. You guys will see this much later in the install. It's going to go right here, just like that. And then here are the boxes from Ecoflow. This is all your other cables. They give you AC in, solar panels in, AC out, which goes to the smart distribution panel, alternator in, and DC out, which goes to the smart distribution panel. So you got two cables coming out, going into this next box that we're going to talk about. All right, so this next one, we've got, let's tilt this camera down just a little more. I'm trying to sneak in the coffee while we get all this. Okay. Let's zoom in, go over this. Okay. All right, I think you can see that pretty good. All right, so what I've done is I've gone ahead and done a little bit of homework, And I've mapped out everything that I want to do. And this is a good learning or teaching lesson for you guys if you're doing a DIY van, is don't plan everything to death, because there's many ways to do everything in a van. And if you pre-plan everything, you're going to run into something where something is definitely not going to work and you've already gone too far, and you're going to actually just have to rip stuff out or move stuff that you kind of, maybe you went too far. So what I like to do is I do this more reasonable, is the way I think about it. So for example, you guys are seeing this live. I'm installing the floor, and I paused for a second because I was getting ready to do my normal, put in every van, hook my fuses up, just normal, just pre-planned, going to come straight back here. Almost to the point where I was going to pre-cut 2 wires and go ahead and have them pre-done before the video started. And then I started reading the manual and found out that, one, this cable, we're going to run it to there and come back. Anyway, my point is, I do everything like this with some tags, so it gives me a clear idea of where things are going. And this is the hard stuff. So this is stuff that 99% of the time it's not going to change. So let's go through the wires in our van. So what we're looking at is a distribution panel. On the left side and the right side, we have 2 inputs. The left side, we have our line, neutral, and ground for our AC in. That is what is coming from the Ecoflow cable from the power hub. Is coming this little knockout. So you can knock it out here. You have 2 knockouts, one in the back. That's what we'll be using. Or if you mounted it and you need them to come in from the side, you can knock out the 2 side ones, or you got the ones on the back. We're putting this box, well, you can't, I'm just too zoomed in. I'll show you in a second. So the AC comes in, and it's wired to its to this 3 terminals to provide power to these little snap down, almost like a Wago connector. So these 3, line, neutral, ground. These are protected by a breaker. So this is just like a household breaker that you have in your fuse panel in the garage or whatever. We've got 2 30 amps, and then we got 4 20 amps. I'll tell you why I'm putting things in certain places in a second, but we'll just get to the gist of it. Over here on the right-hand side, we've got our negative and positive. And they've got a big old sticker here that says, make sure that the negative and positive are connected correctly. So obviously we'll do that, but this input is a cable. It looks like this, and it'll be coming in through here and connecting to this. Now you also have these knockouts down here in the bottom. So for example, AC input, DC input, other cables. So they give you a lot of room to help you wire this in whatever orientation you want to put it in, or wherever you can fit if you're retrofitting something. And then over here on the right-hand side for the DC circuits, we've got 12 fused circuits. The first 6 are remote controllable via the Ecoflow display screen, which is really cool. And so now let's talk about our circuits. So we'll talk about the heavy stuff here. And this is where we get back into the floor, because we have certain places in the van we need our 110, our 12 gauge 3-wire cable to go. So let's go ahead and map that out. So the first one is, we've got, I actually did this backwards. Wait, it doesn't matter. So the first one is the microwave. So we need one going directly to the microwave to have it on its own circuit. The next one is the hot water. So we're using a standard 4-gallon Bosch residential under sink hot water tank. It's right there. We've got a 20 amp for it. Then we have 2 outlets. We're going to have one on the inside of the van, not the one here. That's actually a second one on the inside. So one's on the inside with a kitchen galley, and then the second one is an outside outlet. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, none of these are going to demand anything more than 20 amps. Technically, 2 of the 110 outlets could be on the same circuit, but the reason they're not is because these special flip-up outlets, they're super cool. You got USB and the plugs. I don't recommend that you charge off the USB, so you don't have to run your inverter. In any van conversion, you should have a dedicated 12-volt USB outlet that's running off of just 12 volts. It is less efficient to run it off of an inverted 110, but hey, you guys can do whatever you want to do. That's just my take. But if you have your inverter on and you're cooking or whatever, and you wanted to charge your phone, that's why I like this. This is an all-in-one unit. They say it's water resistant. Again, this is something off of Amazon. Water resistant. They have a seal here, so just be careful. Don't think you can, pour a whole cup of coffee on it or whatever, and you just need to be sensible when you use stuff like this. So we have one inside and one outside, so it's a nice flush mount. The issue is that I can't jump off of one outlet to the next outlet like you would in a house, is because the way that these are designed right here, there's no, it's just one wire only. There's no way to add additional wires because of the way that this mechanism moves in and out, which is fine. It's just more cable we're going to have to use. Okay, so that's taking care of all of our 110. Now our microwave is going to go up the wall behind our ceiling panels. It does not have anything to do with the floor. The hot water does, and then the inside and the outside do. So we have 3 lines that we're going to run from this panel. We're not going to connect them. We're just going to maybe extend them about a foot out, and we're just going to lightly put them in there, just so that we can, hold them down until we get our floor put in, and then we can, we'll wire them up later. But we need to get them in the floor. The floor's going to be cut to where you could stuff it in there, but it's just easier if you just lay them in place before you glue the floor down, if you have that opportunity. Next, what we're going to do is look at the 12-volt side. So what we have here is we have the first circuit, 2 circuits are our LED lights. So we have our front bank of lights for the front of the van, and then we have our rear bank of lights for the rear of the van. And those are just on 2, those technically can just be on 1 circuit. But for right now, I just did them on 2 banks. I don't want to have maybe a switch fail and then mess up, just say a switch shorts or something like that, and then it messes up all your banks. Even though you have both banks switchable on 1 circuit, say you fry all of them. If they're separate, then there'll be a separate problem. You'll at least have half your lights in your van. And then the next 2, these are on separate circuits because this has to do with the current. So we have, let's see if I can show you right here. So we have these really cool reading lights. So they do white light, red light for nighttime, and then they have the USB charging port in the bottom. And 2 of these, when I do USB charging, it's typically the fuses that are in there about 10 amps each. So if we have 2 fused at 10 amps each, we can just do those There's 4 lights. We'll do 2 on one bank for the front, 2 in the back. Again, just redundancy. We have 12 circuits, so we've got plenty to choose from. So after those 2 reading lights for the front and the back, we'll come back and we've got the water pump on its own circuit. The water pump and the LED level indicator will be wired together on the same circuit, so when you turn the pump on, it turns the indicator on, and that way you can check the level at the same time you turn the water pump on. It's kind of easy way to simplify wiring. Next one, we have the 12-volt fridge. And then next we have 2 of the quick charge USB ports. So that allows you to have the USB type A, type C, and it's a quick charge. So I think it's like 65 watts. And then last but not least, we have the 12-volt max fan wired in here. So from here, we're going to have, let's see, we have the 12-volt LEDs. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll probably have 4 wires come across. The other ones will be not in the floor. And then that'll be what we'll be doing today, just kind of wiring everything up. And that's that. So let's zoom the camera back out. We'll get back to work here. And this, let's see if I can actually move the camera in here. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so right here on the left-hand side, this is where we're going to, and it's really cool that it just fits so perfect. I was worried for a minute because, me and aesthetics, I like to make sure things look really nice on the installs, and it just happens that this box fits perfect right here. So the box is going to be right there, and then we're going to have the power hub right up here, and then we're going to have the Ecoflow battery right there, and the platform will be as wide. So this box will come out as wide as the power kit, so probably right about there. And then we'll close this off on the back here. There's no need for really any ventilation back here, but what's really convenient is this is the hole where we're going to drill out for our shore power. So that cable will just go right back here. And I'm not going to be chopping up any of the Ecoflow cables. I'll just be bundling them up, just wrapping them up so that, let me tilt the camera down. There, that's much better. So I won't be chopping these cables up. I'm going to be wrapping them up, and all the excess cable will be in this box area right here. So in the event if something crazy went wrong, you had to unplug everything, you would just take your 4 screws out of this box. You can pull this out. You have enough slack to, that's another good thing to talk about, is making sure that when this box is pulled out here, you have a little bit of capacity to actually work with your wiring. So for example, we're just going to get started here in a second, but we'll pull a wire from the kitchen galley over to back here, and then you kind of see that we just want to give ourselves a little bit more room to work with. Just setting up this camera a little bit better. All right, guys, how are we doing? Do we have any questions on the Ecoflow stuff? Again, we're gonna, we'll cover it, live stream it. Let's see. floor layout. Yeah, let's get back to that. So I have some other components here. Let me just take away the stuff we've already talked about. So we talked about this light. I'm going to put this in a separate video just so we can move on to the floor. I need to get the floor glued in before I leave the shop tonight. So we're going to talk about, when we install this, we'll do a series on how to properly size these fuses. Now, Ecoflow, I guess maybe it's just for looks or convenience, but they populate this with all 20 amp fuses, and don't do that. You need to make sure that your fuses are to protect your wire, all right? It's to make sure that if there's a problem and there's a short and your wire starts to heat up, it will kill the circuit before, or break the circuit before, the wire has an issue. So you'll just need to take these out, and then we'll do a series where I'll show you how we sized all these. So this is our reading light. So we talked about that. Talked about our outlet box. This is going to be going kitchen galley. We got 2 of those. We are not having to do this. Instead, I'm going for one of these. This is a terminal fuse block. And what I'm going to do is we're going to do a terminal fuse for this cable. Because this is just going to be, I don't want to chop this up. And it's extremely highly unlikely that this will ever go, because we're doing the system by the book. We're setting everything up properly, rating all our fuses. This is a 60 gauge, this is a 6 gauge cable. So we'll have the appropriate fuses. Actually, I have it right here, 75 amps. So we're going to put a 75 6 gauge terminal fuse, 75 amp terminal fuse. And that way we can just move on from that. I personally like connecting it directly to the battery. I've done it on my van builds. I don't use the Ford Transit customer service connection, or I forgot what the name of that port is. It's the port on the back of the driver's seat. The problem is we're putting swivel seats on this van, and if you do swivel seats on the van and you work off the customer service port, connection port for your, there's 3 terminals that you can have fused. I think they're 80 to 120 amps or something like that. If one of those fuses blows, you have to unbolt the seat from the swivel and then unbolt the swivel from the base. So that is, that's a pain in the butt. Okay, moving on. Talked about that USB port. We'll talk about this later. These are the lights that we're using. Each one of these lights uses 3 watts of power. We're going to be using 8. I think that's 24. 24 watts, 2 amps. So 2 amps is nothing. Don't even have to worry about that. We're going to run this in just a second. Let's put these fuses away. All right, here we go. So we've got a bunch of cable here. Let's see what cable we got. So the top, this is for our ceiling lighting. So we're not going to be running that under the floor. That's going to go directly in the ceiling over here on the left side, behind one of our panels. So for the ceiling, we're using 18 gauge marine. This is a PowerFlex brand. Now, this is technically overkill, but anytime I'm doing stuff that it's possible it can grab on any piece of metal in the van, Marine cable is always double shielded. So you'll have the inner cable wires, and then you'll have an outer wire. And it's just more durable. It's really not that much expensive, or that expensive. I just think it's good to use. So 18 gauge for our LED lights. And then for our other circuitry in the van, we've got a couple of different options. We've got 12 gauge and 14 gauge depending on what we're going to run. And then we are going to start with the wire that I may not have enough of and may have to go to the store and grab some more. So we're going to start out with this one first. So this is our 12-3. So this is our 12 gauge wire, and then we have our line, neutral, and ground, which will be coming into our box. So this 3-wire will connect here. So it'll come in through the back, wrap around, and we'll have 3 connections. The hot water inside and outside outlet is going underneath the floor. The microwave is going down and back up the refrigerator microwave stack. So we're actually lifting the microwave, we're lifting the refrigerator, the Isotherm Cruise 130, off the ground, and we are putting the microwave on top of it. It'll be interesting because it's very ergonomic. It's easy to open and close. So that was a good idea from John and Susan to make it much easier to get in and out of their van or load up their fridge. Okay, so we'll start off with this. This box, we're just going to sit here, maybe for visual purposes. And I got to correct with something I said in the last stream. I said like 50 psi for the compressive strength of this. It's 15 psi, which is still a lot. That's for the 1-inch XPS foam. All right, let's come over here. All right, so camera looks pretty good. Let me back up just a little bit more. All right, so I'm gonna get to work and kind of probably zone out here and just start working. If you guys have any questions, put those in the chat. I'll pause and come back and answer them. So I'll probably talk through this whole entire thing, but if you don't want to dimple the foam, you can put these wood boards on it. I'm just doing this so I can go through. And if you see me walk on the foam, it's not the end of the world because remember, we put the supports under there so we don't have to risk cracking any of the floor. So right here, you can actually see the floor is very stable. There's no dips or bends, and that's on purpose. That's what we did yesterday in the live stream. All right, let's just, for curiosity's sake, by the way, this is the grounding wires that we're going to ground everything here. There is a grounding port on the power hub itself that needs to be grounded, and then these lines as well need to be grounded too. So just be aware of that. Okay, so we're going to do a drum roll here. I'm sure this is long enough. So for this one, we're going to, so right here is where we're going to be plugging into the system. So right where that bend is, that's going to give us enough slack right there. And then always just unroll the cables. Don't put them in a bind. That way, when you lay them down, they're not going to kink. Yeah, so we definitely have enough cable for sure. Now I'm not connecting this, I want to make sure that we got plenty of extra room here. And we're just test fitting this because we want it to, we got to take it out anyway before we glue everything down. Okay, so if you snake it along like I did, in a 148 Ford Transit van, you're going to have about, you can have easily 4 feet of extra cable. So that's really good. And then what I'll do when I do the install is this thing is just be, wrapped up just like that on the side. And yeah, nice and easy. All right, so next, go ahead and check out our other wire here. So we'll get back on the kitchen galley project when our drawer slides come in. If you guys are curious about what this is, next week I'll be building a duplicate of this, which would actually, it'll be the final version. This is just a demo piece here. You could use this as the real thing. It's built well, but that's not our plan. So, I'm a very visual person, so I like to see where the stuff that I'm putting in is going. Okay, so that's where that is. So again, we're going to come down. We'll go back into the, let's see what I want to do here. So what I'm going to do is I've marked on my wall where the actual part is, and what I'm going to do is once the floor gets glued in and sealed, we're going to have a opening over here at the back of, so we'll cut an opening at the back because the water heater, that's where the water heater comes up. So we'll have the cable run for the water heater. That's perfect. Excellent. Need some duct tape. Okay, so let's do our first run. Again, I'm just getting all the twist out of here. I suggest you do the same thing because it's a pain if you don't get all the twist out. Okay. So as we're pulling this wire, we want to keep in consideration that we want the hot water heater to be switchable. So we want the, move the camera up. Move the camera up, takes a sip of coffee. So we want the hot water heater to be on a switch, like a normal household switch. To do that, because what you do is you might say, hey, I'm going to run a piece of power wire from that to the hot water heater. You could, but your hot water heater is always going to be on. Well, you probably don't want that. So remember, now this is where you kind of, your marine gauge wire, that is going to allow you to think of this as like Romex, for example, for your house. So what we're going to do, we're going to get in house mode, and this cable coming in is like a Romex in our house, and we're going to make sure that we can bring this into our kitchen galley. Now we're going to drill holes in here and do it nice and neat, you know, behind the drawers and all that stuff, but we first need to make sure that we can feed this to our switch box, which will be located here in the kitchen galley. So when you open the door and you're ready to either, you know, do an outdoor shower in the back or do some dishes or something like that, you need some hot water, you just flip a switch, kicks on, about 15 minutes you're going to have nice hot water. But we got to get a cable to the switch. So we're going to do this. Okay, and just like that, that's going to give us the slack we need to strip, do the wire, and then this guy is just going to come around here. We're going to make sure this is nice and flat in this channel. And then what's going to happen is we're going to have a box over here, and this box is going to be the support for our Ecoflow battery, and the panel is going to be right here. So this wire highway is going to go around and bring our wire into our distribution panel. Now, we're going to glue the front panel in, then we'll come here and do this one. We're really just doing each of these one at a time. So that's going to bring it into the box. So there we go, right here into the box. We're going to come out, and then we're going to come up. So we snook it around. We gave ourselves about an extra 6 to 8 inches, came over, and then we came up as if we're going inside the box. And then now, we've got it wired into the box. And I think what I'm do, I'm just going to give myself a little standard place right there to make sure I have enough. Okay, so now I've got plenty extra to wire it in the box, and I've got extra so that if I need to pull this out and do maintenance on it, I've got a little bit extra. So in all, I probably have about 2 feet of extra cable. So I'm just going to bend this right here, and I will cut it because that's where I'm going to put it. Okay. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to take, let's see, this is for our hot water. So I've got my sticker. I'm just going to take that off. I'm going to wrap it around the end of this wire. Make sure I can actually strip it off, and we'll go back here. Okay, so now this wire is labeled right here. So what I do is when I put these labels on here, I peel off half of the adhesive, and then I can pull off the second half, and then I can just put it on a wire. So now this one is good to go. We can just move it out of the way. And so the next wire, this one is not, so this one will not go in the floor. But remember, we still need a wire to connect from the electrical box to the water heater. We'll do that later when we're hooking it up, so we don't need to cut that now. It's not necessary. It's not going in the floor. Let's see, but now let's see. We're just gonna do our 2 outlets, and then we'll be done with this wire. Hopefully, I've got enough to do those 2. If you want to try to buy this locally, you can go to West Marine. So that's a store that sells boat components, you know, rope, floats, GPS, Garmin stuff. All right, so this one we got coming back here. And this outlet will be right behind here. And I think we're going to put this outlet right. I'm going to pop it right there. Now, when you're doing this, you really take you make sure you do it, the wire's really neat, even though they're going to get taken out later. When I did the Adventure Wagon build, I had about 4 extra cables because I needed to add a couple more circuits for some different things. And I had planned on not as many as I did. So for this van, for example, I went about a 1/2 inch wider in this channel than I did on the Adventure Wagon build because there's no reason you can use as much space as you need. So I added more space, but I still want to make sure that all the wires are laid perfectly together and nice and stacked. They're not just randomly laid on top of each other. Because when you do this, we're going to wrap some ends with electrical tape. Just make sure nothing vibrates. But by doing that, you'll maximize all the amount of wire that you can actually use. All right. Let's get right there. Now we're going to keep everything loose in the channel. We'll put a little bit of insulation in there, and that'll help with rattling and also insulation because there's no insulation there. Good news is it's not where it's in the garage area. It's not going to be where your feet are, so you won't even notice it. Because remember, you got a 1/2 inch piece of plywood, you got the lawn sill on top of that. But we will put the insulation in there just to keep the noise down when we are when the cables go in. So what we want to do is we'll put a little bit of the Havelock down and then we'll seat the wires in, and then we'll put a bat on the top, and do like a little sandwich so they're not clacking up and down. The reason I'm doing that is I wrapped and taped. I made a huge what am I trying to say? Like a wire snake. I took like 6 cables or 8, and I wrapped them in their whole entire wire loom. It was so neat. I put them in there. It looked amazing. The problem is if you ever needed to pull this for some reason, you can't really pull the wire out if you needed to do that. And, you know, the insulation will keep it from rattling, and you'll still be able to add a wire or take one out if you needed to. Which I highly doubt anybody's going to do that, but if you're, that might help you in your build. So this one's going to be our outside. So we just pull our outside sticker. And I also learned, don't put this on the end. I want to put it back about, you know, a foot or so it's where we're not stripping and cutting off the wire. And this really speeds up wiring later because you don't even have to guess. Now you may be asking, am I doing that to these wires yet? No, but I will print this off really quick before I take the kitchen galley off. All right, do we have enough for the third? Oh, by the way, this is UL listed anchor wire. If you can, try your best to get UL listed cables in your van. I know a lot of the stuff on Amazon is tempting, but you know, if you can, try to get UL listed wire. And we're just going to take the rest of this reel off. We might have enough. If we don't, then this will turn into a different video because I can't. Like, I can glue the foam in. I just can't glue the wood down. Which we might just do the foam, and we might do the wood tomorrow. Now this is for the top of the kitchen galley, so it's possible this might be the perfect length. So this one, we're going to be coming up. Okay, it's not going to go here, it's going to go back here, but the worst thing you could do is not run enough cable to work with. So sure we do that. All right, so this goes up here. That's going to be excellent. So this one I'm going to go backwards with this one. want my excess for this one to be in a different location. So we're just going to match this one on how far it comes out. Let's do that. A knee pad will help you not dimple your insulation. Okay, that one's excellent. Perfect. All right, looking good. Next, actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a 3M Thinsulate. I'm not going to use Havelock for this because I can compress the 3M just a little bit better. Okay, we got 3. All right, so that's our inside plug. Let's go ahead and put the sticker on for that. All right, do the microwave later. That's going to go in a different direction. Okay, we got 4 wires for 12 volt. This is a little tip here. So we've got our Ecoflow pump. This is the 42 series, and it's something that I recommend. I'm not sponsored or anything. I just really like this pump. With my current use of this pump, I don't use an accumulator. It has a really nice ramp up and ramp down, very smooth. It's self-priming. It can run dry without damage. Now, you should never run a pump dry, but if you accidentally do, this one's okay. You can deal with it. It's quiet, and it doesn't do a lot of surging if you plumb it correctly. But over here on the side, let's see, we've got the 30, 55, 42, and we've got the 12 volt series, and the max draw on this is 7.5 amps. So we got 7.5 amps. We're going to round it up to 8 because we're going to be powering an LED light. Now I know that doesn't take half an amp, but what we're going to do is we're going to look up online really quick. I'm going to move this camera. Give me 1 second. Okay. All right, back on the nice microphone. All right, let's go to, we're going to look at our wire gauges. We're going to talk about this right here. So we're going to talk about fuse sizing. So we got 2 wires we're using. We have 12 or we have 14 gauge. Let's find out what we want to use. And this is how you can do it. So you can, let's just type in 18 max amps. Now this is 18. And then we're going to just go through. And usually we have our chart, our Blue Sea Systems chart. Actually, I already pulled this up. Where is it? There we go. Okay, so over here on the right is our ampacity, which is our max amps we can use with a certain gauge of wire. Now, remember I said, let's see here. So this range down here at the bottom, 26 going down to 18 would be for, LEDs, for example. So up here for our 12 gauge, we've got 30, and then our 14 gauge, we've got 25. So between both of those, number one, we are good for the maximum of the Ecoflow. Those are both, rated over 20 amps. So you could use these two. And it really just depends on what you're buying for your van. So how much do you have, what do you have left over for what you're going to use it for? Now, in my personal experience, actually, I did. Sorry, guys. There we go. This is what I was talking about. This is the chart. I forget to change that stuff sometimes. But this chart shows you 26. The higher number is the skinnier wire. It's backwards. Now, I had a 12-volt fridge that said, 14 gauge, or it was running, I think, a 14 gauge, and it was fine. But however, I had some issues with it, some new nuisance faults, and I changed it to 12. What you can see, 12 gives it just a little bit more ampacity, or the ability to carry more current through the wire. So whether you're going for 12 or 14, they're really not that much of a difference, but this is where it comes down to price and what you want to do. But think about the future. So is there anything else you're going to connect to this circuit? So will you be adding on USB ports? Will you be adding on lights? Are you anticipating adding stuff because you didn't run enough power to a location and you're trying to just add more power one line? Because if you do, these numbers and these values on the right are going to start to matter. For example, if you had one USB port and it was 10 amps and you ran an 18 gauge to it. But now that 10 amp fused circuit, you're like, oh, I want to add 4 more quick charge USB ports. Well, now you went up to, 30 or 40 amps. So now you're getting into this higher range, and that's where you can start to blow fuses. And worst off, if you don't do the correct wiring, that's where the wire starts to actually get hot and potentially melt and cause a really dangerous situation. So definitely pay attention to, what you can run. The Blue Sea Systems wire chart. There we go. So this is one I like. It's kind of complicated, and it is it takes a minute to learn how to actually interpret it, but it's a very clear-cut way of understanding power because it incorporates the length of the wire. Typically in a van, a length of wire doesn't really matter, but for example, in Thomas's van, Marine 1 that we did, we added a bunch of circuits later, and realizing that by going down the van, up the wall, across the ceiling, back down the van, along the van, up to the driver's seat, where you started off with thinking you're going to be about 12 to 16 feet, turns into 30 feet. So when you go past a critical, there's non-critical and critical. So depending on the length of your cable, if there's some circuitry, so for example, in this situation, we had a fridge that was very sensitive to voltage drops. If your cable or your power line is long enough, you may experience these nuisance faults where you're just right on the edge of providing just enough voltage, because the longer your wire is, the more resistance it's going to take for that power to flow. So long story short, if we go to 5 amps, okay, what was our pump? We went 7.5, and we want to go up to 8, just for a little bit of insurance. So 8, let's call it 10. So we're just going to go to the 10 amp. Oversizing is okay. As you can see right here, so we've got 12 and 14 gauge. So our determining factor is length. So if we do critical, that means if we use a 12 gauge wire to run our pump, the run can be no longer than 15 feet. If it's a 14 gauge, it can be no longer than 10 feet. So I think what I'm going to do is a water pump, I would say, is non-critical. So see how big the links increase. So you would be fine with it says 16 gauge, but I don't really ever use 16 gauge for that. I think the 14 is probably the minimum that I use in a van, besides the LED lights in the ceiling. So yeah, 14 gauge would be great. The 14 gauge is going to give us up to 10 amps. So we could put a 10 amp fuse in there. Now, when you size a fuse, you can go to something like Explorus.life, and you can put in the device amps. So let's say let's go really close. So we'll do the manufactured max draw of that pump, which is 7.5 amps. The wire size we'll do 14. So the minimum fuse size we can use is 7.5. So by this calculator, the 14 gauge, it's too close. It's too close for us. I'm sorry. It would be just right at what we need. If you go to 12, nothing changes. It's because they're both fine to use. But if we go up to, let's just say 8, how does this thing change? So 10. So 12 gauge, we got 10 amps for the recommended fuse size. So that works pretty good. Now, remember, if your water pump is running hot, like you've been using it a lot, cycling a lot, the heat may cause this the amperage to increase. So you want to, let's do a 12. Let's see, where's our chart? So 12 gauge, let's do 12 gauge. And we'll do max amps. So we got 20 amps. So if you have a pump that's running hot, it sometimes will increase the resistance enough to where you may need to oversize the line. Now, that's only if it's designed to do that. But we're going to stick with the recommendation of this, and we're going to go with a 10 amp fuse. And we're going to do and I'll do 14 gauge for that. All right. Let's see what else. What are we getting? How many people on the stream right now? Got 3 people out there. Not bad. Yeah, so 14 gauge, 15 amps. 10 amp fuse. Perfect. All right, so we're going to go. We've got our 14 gauge. So let's go ahead and get back to work. Putting that in. And again, guys, if you have any questions, you can put those in the chat. Answer a message really quick. Give me 1 second. All right, we are back. There we go. 14 gauge. Let's go ahead and run this. All right, I need to double check 2 things. We're going to, this might be fun for you guys if you haven't seen these components for the van, but we're going to just pop in the water tank and hot water heater just as placeholders so we can triple check. Our little game plan we got going on. Now, this is not sponsored, but this is a 36-gallon tank from Northwest Conversions. All right. I've got another pump, one of these pumps sitting over there. So this is what it looks like in real life. Not that big. but just triple checking that we can. So the closer to the water source you can put the pump, the happier you will be. All right, so right here, let's see, I got that plugged up. I think we can. We've got our drain port. Okay, yep, that'll work. That way I don't have to rob that space from the hot water heater. Now the hot water heater, for example, you're going to see what it looks like. It's already got a regular household plug on it. So all you're going to do is basically have an extension cord plugged into this going to the outlet box. And you don't have to, you don't need a dedicated electrical box for this. Now something I do for me so I can troubleshoot customer vans is you can get, make sure it's an appropriate gauge wire. So this one is 16 gauge. So this 16 gauge, you want to get an extension cord like from Lowe's that's 16 gauge as well. If you can get the one that has the lighted in, so when this gets power, so if you're troubleshooting your van, you get the lighted in so that when you plug it in here, if you take the lid off to do some troubleshooting, say your hot water heater is not working, you're wondering if it's getting power, you can just take the cover off and you can look and see if it's lit up and you know you're getting power and there's not like a fuse issue. It's more, it might be a hot water heater issue. Plus, if you ever needed to replace this, you just unplug it, get another one, plug it back in. So yeah, there's no need to cut and splice this. Just keep it just like it is. Yeah, so right here, so it'll look good. Plus this thing is very light. Okay, so now I'm just going to take a piece of duct tape on our wire, and we're just going to give ourselves enough room to wire this down here. Now, you may be asking me, why am I not just running this right here at the back of the van? So down here at the bottom, I'll tell you why. So I don't run it down underneath here because this is a difficult area to manage, in my opinion. So over here, everybody's going to be wanting to sit down here. You need the support because you're going to be loading equipment in. People will sit down here. You're going to sit down here. You're going to load stuff in. And this needs to be supported with all those pieces of, what am I trying to say? The corrugation cables. Now, I've run some stuff behind here before. I just think if you're doing a DIY, it's just more effort to cut through those support strips to get an additional cable here. This over here too is going to be covered, but we don't want any wire sticking or hanging out the back. We want to use some extra wire to neatly manage the wire, not try to make something work, if that makes sense. And so this will be a power supply, like I said, for our indicator LED for our level of the tank, as well as providing the power for our water pump. And I need to get my razor because I did not cut the foam large enough to accommodate that wire. You can always cut a lot of the foam out. The wood is going to have plenty of support, not only because of the way that we put the strips in the floor, but just because the wood's got a lot of plies, and I mean there's no pressure on the outside of this. I think it's all in my 14 gauge too. Yeah, but take your time to get all these kinks out of the cable and unravel it. Okay, let's see how much we got left. I think about 2 feet. That's fine. We can cut that off later. Yeah, but we've got enough. We got plenty over here to wire into. And what's cool is we're going to take a Wago connector. We're going to do a 4-pin Wago connector on this. We'll connect 2 wires. Also something you can do, let's just see, I'm curious here. Yeah, so as long as if your wire is bigger than the pump wire, you're always good. Because they're actually using 16 gauge wire. We use a 14, so we just upsized. That's just going to make it all the better. But we'll take a 4-thing Wago, 2 wires in, and then the other 2 will be, or actually a 3. What am I saying here? Yeah, 4. What am I saying? 2 2s. 2 for the positive, 2 for the negative. That way we can connect the LED into that. All right, so that's good. Take this tank out. Put our prop on the floor. All right, moving right along. So let's see. Let's take our sticker off for our water. Just going to go about 1.5 feet in. I'll just put 12 volt. So right here I got 12 volt water pump plus LED. That way you know exactly what it's for. I didn't take this strip off. Yeah, that way you know exactly what it's for. The plan is to never ever see this label again, but if you're in a situation where something's happening and you don't know what's going on, all your stuff is labeled. Troubleshooting is easy. All right, I have a message I got to get to, so we're going to have to end the stream short. I'm going to be on here for 7 more minutes. We'll go till 8:30. So let's, it'll be too late when I come back here to glue the floor in, so I'll try to do a time lapse for you if I get to it. Let's see, let's do one more wire here. So we have the reading lights. So the 2 reading lights, they're going to come up this wall here, this wall cavity from this box. So come our box, we'll come up. Let's move the camera here. Okay, they're going to come into this box right here. They're going to go up the wall, and we'll go up 1 reading light, up and over. We'll come down for our 2nd reading light right over there. We'll come down in this top section. This top section actually has a throughway. So right here, between this and the front right here, this area, there's a pass-through. So that'll go down, up and over to the other 2 reading lights. So that takes care of the 2 reading lights. The fridge is also going to be on the driver's side, so we can do that later. The USB quick charge. So we need to do 1 USB quick charge. So let's see, we get our 12 gauge. Let's see what we're going to go on the computer. Let's see, we got 12 gauge. What do we got max amps? We got 20 amps. So if we do, let's go to the wire. Let's see what we can do here. So this is way overdoing it, but that's how you do stuff safely. So we can do it. So we got 2 20 amps. This is USB charging devices, and it's a quick charge. There's no way you're going to pull 20 amps. Maybe 5 amps max. So 20, 12 gauge. Recommended is 25. The minimum is 20. So let's hop on Ecoflow really quick. Okay, so the DC output negative, here we go. 3, 4, 5, 60 amps. I'm trying to find out what the max amp is on this Ecoflow. This is what I'm talking about. This is why professional van building, has a place, is something that people do, because you need experience sometimes to interpret what these companies are saying, because they're going to give you information in a manual, but they're not going to tell you. They're not going to teach you principles in correct wire sizing. They're just going to say, hey, here's a minimum. So the question that I'm asking, I'm trying to figure out in this example is, out of all of our fuses that we have here, what is our maximum for this main whole circuit versus all the individual circuits? So did they put a 20 amp fuse in there just because to ship it, to have a placeholder, or is 20 amps the max that one thing can hold? Or is it over here where we have, I just saw that somewhere. So trying to find that answer is what I look into. I'm trying to, so here we go. There we go. That's what we're looking for. So you really need to dig into these manuals to make sure that you're safe. So, because you could hook something up, you could use something that allows you to have a, you could put a 6-gauge wire in there. I don't do this, but I'm just saying, some people that don't know might strip a wire back and try to fit it in that hole in the circuit board or this part of the system, and put a 30 amp fuse and say, hey, I've fused it. But right here on our output spec, we've got DC output, 6 controllable circuits, 6 regular circuits. So we identified that earlier. All right, we're getting into some detail stuff. Let's go to the nice microphone. There we go. So as I'm looking at this, we've got 12 circuits. So here's our 12 circuits. So right now, this 12 circuit is a maximum current each at 20 amps. So 20 amps each, which means 12 gauge wire is technically that's the wire that's the most that we can use for that. Now, I'm wondering if they'll even mention 10 to 30 volts DC. Yeah, because it's such a wide range. So you have a 20 amp for each circuit, and each circuit is 10 to 30 volts. So, so let's see what that means. It's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 10. That's 240 amps. So what I'm trying to figure out from more of a safety thing is the main power supply for this whole entire thing. So you've got a DC in. So your DC in, I want to know, are they saying, hey, you can populate this fully with all 20 amp circuits, and we're providing you 240 amps worth of power. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Okay, so maximum. Where's the maximum? Where's the maximum DC output? So yeah, so that's another thing I'm going to hop on the phone with them tomorrow and talk about is just call up support. I just want to double check. I'm going to double check for the alternator cable, if that's something I'm able to add. And then I also want to ask, does this circuit right here, for example, if I did not populate these last two are, let's see here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So let's say I didn't populate these last 5. Does that mean that these circuits can handle 240 distributed evenly across? That's kind of where I'm coming from. Because there may be, this is where you kind of get into limitations. So for John and Susan, their requirements do not dictate that we need to go over anything over 12 gauge for any of their components. That's, we're not charging all this stuff off of a 12 volt 20 amps. 20 amps on a 12 volt circuit is plenty. We've got plenty of things to choose from. I'm just curious for other stuff. So if I wanted to do, bigger things on circuits, because one thing to think about is if you had a particular 12 volt fridge, and that 12 volt fridge needed more than 20 amps, let's say 25 amps, does that mean on this system that you can remove a bank, not use that, and then that allows you to have a little bit more, like 5 more amps on one circuit. Anyway, I'm getting into the weeds. Let's see. We are going to call it a live stream tonight because we are going to. I got this message I got to get back to. So we're going to do that. But before we go, I want to tell you guys about a couple things. VanBuilderHQ.com. If you guys have gone and checked it out, awesome website. It is our website. We got a ton of blog posts. VanBuilderHQ.com. There we go. Up, back up. So check it out, VanBuilderHQ.com. We have a bunch of blog posts that I've written, and we go into deep dive into DIY power systems, best camper van awnings, heaters for your camper van, which Ford Transit is best. All these articles. Love for you guys to hop onto there and check it out. You click on an article, you go through. It's really nice and organized, and we've got some key takeaways. And then all the shows that we go to, we take photos, and some of our vans are in there as well. But we're just giving you more information on how to get into a DIY van conversion, helping you out, talking about batteries, power system, floor insulation like we're working on today. And if you want to find out what components and parts that I buy, the next step is to hop on over and click on this right here. It's the DIY Van Build cheat sheet. So I created this sheet. It's essentially an Excel document. It's 100% free for you guys. It's just great information. It's the last 3 years of all of my Amazon purchases organized into a list of over 250 curated items. You get this when you put your name and email address. We send it right to your inbox. You can search it, but I'll just go through a couple categories. We got storage, electrical. We've got fasteners, hardware, insulation, solar. This is all the stuff I bought off of Amazon, so it's really convenient to pick up. The most important thing on here that I think is the tools. This is stuff that if I had gone back in time and bought these instead of having to figure out later to get them, it would have made all these installs much easier. It would have made the Adventure Wagon install easier. These carbide drill bits, drilling into that really hard steel at the top of a Ford Transit van, crimping tools, soldering station, hydraulic cable lug tool, which is the hydraulic crimper for battery cables. So instead of hammering on that little block, this does it hydraulically. It's much easier, much more of a professional, satisfying crimp. And then we go into a little bit of plumbing stuff, and then some water systems like the pump and the tank that I talked about. But check this out. I think it'll really help you out with your DIY van build, and it is completely free. All you got to do is go to vanbuilderhq.com, click on the link in the description below, put your name and email address. It'll go right to your inbox, and you've got a free DIY van build cheat sheet to help you out with your next or your current van build. Then last but not least, Odyssey Custom Vans. That is my custom van conversion business. The van that we are working on behind us, which is John and Susan's van. And if you want to have your own van conversion done, hop on odysseycustomvans.com. You'll see the current vans either that we have for sale on here, which is the one that we took to Venture Van Expo this year, currently for sale. Details about that van, some photos, so you guys can check out what that one looks like. But if you're not interested in purchasing that van and you want to do your own custom conversion, here's my contact information. The easiest way to contact me, we got email, phone, but the best way is to click here on this link, schedule a call, and you have access to my calendar, select a date and a time, and it'll go right on there. We'll hop on a phone call, talk about your custom van conversion. Before that call, we got a little quick blurb over here on the left, just talking about what we're going to talk about on that phone call, just to get you ready. Make sure you got a laptop open, internet, computer. We can go over build scheduling, design, pricing, current availability, all that fun stuff. But yeah, get in touch if you're interested in having a custom van conversion done, and check out the calendar, pick a time that's convenient for you, and we'll hop on a call, talk about your van conversion. All right, guys, other than that, thanks so much for checking out the live stream tonight. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Share this to anybody that is looking to get more tips on installing their floor. Maybe they're moving into the electrical, putting it in the floor, or just talk about what we talked about tonight. Think it'll help them out. If you have any comments during the live stream, always put those in the chat. Ask me questions after the stream. Put them in the comments section, and I'd love to get back to them and maybe do a future video answering those questions. So we're going to sign off for tonight, and we'll see you guys tomorrow on the next live stream.